Good day, it's Tony Fortunato from the technology firm. This is going to be a series of articles and videos. I broke this up for basically two reasons. One, it'd be probably 30 minutes if I try to jam it all into one session, which nobody has time for. And I also truly believe that having this in parts is more valuable because you can do it in parts. And you'll see what I mean in just a minute. So the first one is setting things up. And then after you set things up, you can do almost anything with it. Even beyond what I'm going to explain to you in the next few sessions anyways. So sit tight, enjoy, and I think you're going to get a lot of tips and tricks out of this. So this is the application baselining and performance series, and this is going to be part one. This is the setup. Now, I'm going to just kind of start right from the beginning. So the applications use protocols, they transfer data, and sometimes that protocol or that application may well explain why one is more efficient than the other. So software might use different protocols for different functions, like a signature file update might be different than the actual application protocol as well. Even DNS, for example, DNS has a TCP portion and a UDP portion, right? I've been asked many times which is the fastest or more efficient application, and this is kind of the steps we take to figure that out. So before you start capturing, you have to establish a baseline with whatever hardware you plan to use. So I chose Iperf3. Because for a bunch of reasons. Number one, it runs in RAM. Of course, it's free, which everybody likes. It's available for different operating systems, which is really the biggest reason, to be honest with you. So I can run Iperf3 on Windows, Linux, Apple, Android, all that kind of stuff. And the URL's there. You can just Google it and go get it yourself. I didn't put it in there, but I also like the fact that it's portable. It's a portable app. You can just put it on a USB stick, shove it in your machine, and off you go to the races. So host internal baseline. Now this is incredibly important. You pick two computers that you're going to be testing with, or a computer and a phone or a tablet or whatever you want to test with. In this case, I've got this desktop on the left-hand side, I've got this laptop on the right-hand side, and I'm going to run Iperf. So the first thing we do is within the machine, you open two command prompts. The first one you do is you type Iperf space -s, and that starts the server. And then you're going to type in another command prompt, Iperf space -c, and your loopback or internal address to run your test. Now the default is an upload test. So after you finish that, you can do an Iperf-c 127.0.0.1 and then -uppercase R. That's not a typo. It's an uppercase. It's a capital R. And that'll run a download test. You want to run both, right? So no matter what test you do, if you're copying to a web server, an SMB server, any kind of server, if you can ever write to that server, you want to test writing or uploading as well as reading or downloading. In some cases, you might not be able to write to it, like a web server, for example. You might just be able to test downloads, but you still should do this internal test because some systems behave pretty weird, or the drivers or something funky in your computer will affect that upload or download test. So in this case, you can see the desktop averaged 5.96 gigabits per second internally and almost 10 gigabits down within its internal environment. Okay, I keep saying internal because you're not leaving the device. You're not going out on the network, right? You're staying within it. On the laptop, we averaged 6.5 up and 6.5 down. The point of the exercise is I got well over 1 gig. So that means if I plug into a 1 gig switch port, both machines internally have the, I'm going to say, guts to at least get up to a gig, right? So from there, we're going to do a network baseline. Now, a couple of little, I'm going to say, caveats or things to look for. We didn't have any extra processes or applications running in the background. Just check your task manager, for example, and make sure your CPU's not running at 90%, that crazy kind of stuff. And you've got, obviously, we've got some memory. Disk was doing nothing at that time, and the network was doing nothing at that time. So when you look at your task manager or any processing monitoring software, just don't take a quick glance, right? Just let it run for 5-10 minutes, have a graph up or whatever, and just to see if something maybe cyclically or intermittently pops into the picture and affects performance. In this case, both devices are pretty quiet. The other thing we did was we disabled the firewall and real-time antivirus. Why? Because they may kick in, they may try to scan, who knows. I just don't want to take that chance. I want to have the best case scenario. And then if we want to enable the firewall, we want to enable antivirus and find out if that affects performance. That's a whole other exercise. This is a baseline, right? So this is our baseline. So what we're going to do is perform an upload test. So on one device, we're going to type Iperf3-C host. And that means that's the target, right? And then the download test is the same thing with a minus uppercase or capital R. And there's our results right there. So from the desktop here, we got 878 meg up, 930 down. And from the laptop, we got 930 up and 893 down. Now, for the people who are catching on to the pattern, you'll see the 930 and 933, his down is his up. So they kind of line up, right? They're relatively close, I'm going to say. And you get a sense for their behavior, right? Which way is faster than the other way. And it's just more of an FYI more than anything. It's not going to affect our tests moving forward. So from there, we have to pick our roles. So since the average network throughput is pretty close, it doesn't matter who the server is. In this case, I'll just use the desktop as a server, and therefore the laptop as a client. In the real world, that's what I do because the laptop is portable and I might want to do some Wi-Fi testing or walk around to different VLANs or different parts of the building. So the laptop just practically makes more sense. And it's the same thing. If you used your phone, your Android or Apple phone, you might want to use the phone as the client and then a desktop as a server. And of course, this is cabled, right? This is all cabled, best case scenario. And in some labs, for the people who've seen my previous work, I don't even use a switch. I just use a crossover cable. But in this case, they were both on the switch, so I just left it like that. I'm not going to really get into what kind of operating systems are on there, what kind of hardware is on there. It's almost irrelevant. So the point of this exercise is to show you the methodology and any tips along the way so you can conduct your own test. So the quick review, back to the slide. We did an internal test with Iperf to make sure everything works, and we documented our tests. As you can see, I did 5 tests for either side. In some cases, I always delete the high and the low and average to 3. Since all 5 of them are relatively close, I'm just going to use all 5 and I average them. After we did the internal test, we moved to the network baseline, and then that obviously told us how they behaved on the wire. So that's it. That's all there is to it. So that's kind of step 1, to set up your lab. And then after you finish that, you'll see in the next session, we're going to start actually analyzing some protocols and applications that we're going to test with. Have a good day. Bye for now.